Good morning, everyone, and I hope you're having a great week here at Automation Fair. And it's my pleasure to be with you this morning to talk with you a little bit about companies that are really making progress around their transformation initiatives. Yesterday, you heard a lot from Rockwell Automation leaders around technology trends and the new things that hopefully you've seen all across the Automation Fair Expo floor. And today we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about what companies are doing to make progress in their initiatives and share with you some insights and experiences. Later this morning, you're going to hear from a panel of industry leaders who are going to share with you their experiences, some of the things that are working and not, and the challenges that they've faced as they've driven transformational initiatives within their own organizations. I have a privilege of being able to work with manufacturing and industrial leaders all around the world, and it's through these discussions and collaborations that there's some insights that I want to share with you. In addition, each year for the last 10 years, we've done a State of Smart Manufacturing report. And in that report, we survey industry leaders from around the world. This year, over 1,500 industry executives responded to the survey, and so it's a great representation of your peer group. And my big takeaway from the survey and the report this year is that disruption and uncertainty are really the new normal that all of us are working in. And uncertainty, volatility, and change is really the challenge that all of us as leaders in our companies and with our teams face. It makes making decisions difficult when it's difficult to predict what might happen in the future, even in the next few days. It's difficult to predict what might be happening in the world and in our businesses. And it feels like the stakes are really high when you think about the decisions and the challenges that you're facing, and that's often because they are higher today than what they've been in the past. And so the world is changing fast, and we as an industry must too. My goal today is to share with you a few areas where I believe that companies are accelerating their progress in driving change initiatives and improvements in their operations. And so we'll talk about how you can set yourself up for success in what I see companies doing that are really accelerating their progress and really leading in driving change in their organizations, and that's different from those who are falling behind. And there's three really big accelerators that I think differentiates the companies that are making progress. And the first is people-powered transformation. In a world where our nearly daily conversations are around technology and artificial intelligence, if people aren't at the center of your strategy, you will fail. And we'll talk about what I'm seeing companies do that are really making an impact. The second is around justifying your investments. And it's changed wildly over the last few years where new challenges that we're facing as an industry and you as a company are really changing the way that we need to think about our business cases. And so mastering the new economics of transformation and how to justify and build your business case is important as you move forward. And then lastly, there are a lot of starts and stops to improvement initiatives, change initiatives, but getting scale success is really important. And I'll talk about what I'm seeing in companies that are really making progress and are finding the ability to have an impact at scale across their organizations. So in most presentations, I'm guilty of this too, people come at the end. And last but not least, people are the most important part of the strategy. So we're gonna flip that script, we're gonna walk the talk, and we're gonna talk about people first. Because this is, I think, one of the biggest differentiators that I see companies who are making much more progress in their initiatives to improve their operations are taking. People will always be a critical part of our operations, our businesses, our production floor. But we need more skilled, more digitally fluent, and more empowered people operating our plants, maintaining our systems, and thinking about the future of how we operate more effectively. If you're, really what's driving improvements in performance for companies is strategy. A great strategy has to be centered around people. And there's a few things that I've seen leaders do that I think really help them bring the whole organization along with them and really ignite their organizations to drive substantial change. And the first is that they start with clarity. They outline clearly the business outcomes that they want to achieve, whether that's increasing the ability to meet customer demand, creating agility and resiliency in their businesses, reducing costs, becoming more productive. They start with the end in mind. What are the business outcomes that we want to achieve? And then how, bringing people into the process of engaging and creating ideas of how to get there. The second is that they build trust. They lead with transparency. They share not only the clear objectives and goals for the organization, but they get people involved in the process. They ask, why are we struggling with this today? Why are we having these challenges? What ideas do you have to engage? And so transparency, there's work we need to do, and being transparent about the objectives that you have are engaging people in the process. And then the third is they empower people. They pull people into the process. They think about the skills and the capabilities, the kinds of roles that will be needed in the future to empower the team and to drive the organization. And they focus on skill building. Building 21st century skills with your teams is critical to your success, both in the short and the long term. In the State of Manufacturing survey, one of the things that was really new this year was the intent for companies to repurpose the roles that people have to create new types of roles and skills in their organization, and more than 50% of the respondents said they had plans to build new roles and repurpose existing talent into those roles. Now, artificial intelligence and digital tools can play a role, an important role in enabling and empowering your teams, and getting people engaged on how they'll use those and how they can make an impact will be really important. A great example of this is Perth County Ingredients, which is a Canadian food manufacturer. They were their goal was to improve the performance of their maintenance operations. And so the first thing that they did, not evaluating the technology that they could use, they engaged their people in the process. They worked to understand, how do the maintenance teams perform their work? What are the challenges that are getting in their way? What's the kind of information and support that they need in order for them to be effective? And what they found is that they needed real-time access to standard operating procedures, maintenance guides, the work orders that they needed to perform. And so they needed real-time access to that information. So they outfitted them with tablets. They implemented the Fix maintenance management system that has a mobile capability so that everyone was empowered with the information they needed in their hands at the right time to perform their work. And what they found was that their reactive maintenance, having to react to problems in the plant, reduced by more than 50%, and the after-hour calls that were required for their maintenance teams were cut in half. And so major improvements and things that they wouldn't have understood as they were thinking about the technology that they wanted to employ until they pulled their people into the process to drive the strategy and the approach that they took. Okay, the second area that I think is an important accelerant for all of us in the room is how to justify the investments that we want to make. You're going to learn a lot of things this week that are going to spark, hopefully, a lot of ideas of things that you could take back and implement and drive within your organization. But it's a pretty competitive environment right now for investments, whether that's into IT systems, other digital tools. Every board and management team is talking about the impact that AI can have in their business and how do they move faster in leveraging that technology. as operations leaders, you're competing with a lot of other investment opportunities that your companies have. Within the State of Smart Manufacturing survey, nearly half of the respondents said that justifying their investments, the cost and the investment level in their initiatives was a big obstacle. And the challenge there really is how to articulate and create the value case for change and the change in the investment that you want to make. And traditionally, we build business cases, particularly in manufacturing, focused on a reduction of a cost. And cost is a very tangible item. You could measure it, and you've got real hard data to leverage. But increasingly, the ability for you to be agile in your operations, to respond to volatility in the external market, changing customer expectations, your ability to have availability of your operations and be able to mitigate downtime or disruption that might occur, and your resiliency, ultimately your resiliency to operate as an organization are really important factors that will impact you in the long term and your long-term success. There are many companies today, and you'll hear from a few on the stage when our panel joins us later this morning, that have made operations a strategic imperative for their business. They're sharing it externally with their shareholders. They're communicating broadly within their organizations that operations has a big impact for them. And so the volatility and disruption that we're all experiencing today is not a reason to wait. It's a reason to act. And so I would challenge you to think bolder about the business cases that you are building when you think about the investments you need to make to drive your performance, and beyond traditional measures like reducing costs, which will continue to always be really important, thinking about the broader set of objectives that you want to achieve and driving for that value as a part of your business case. It's difficult, however, to justify or quantify increases in capacity and throughput, what a higher yield would bring to your organization. And I think that digital tools can play an effective role in helping you quantify the impact for your operations. For a number of years, we've been working with you on how to leverage emulation and simulation as a part of the design process so that you can design a system, you can test out the code, you can make sure that you wring out any issues before you're deploying into the manufacturing environment. But some of the most innovative companies that I'm seeing are moving the use of digital tools to the left, and they're leveraging emulation and simulation to be able to test and validate the potential investment that they might make and see real tangible data around the impact that it could have. We're actually doing this in our own business. So yesterday, Blake shared with all of you our announcement that we were planning to spend $2 billion of investment over the next 5 years in our own plants and equipment, our digital infrastructure, and our talent. And we announced yesterday a new greenfield site in southeast Wisconsin. And we've been leveraging digital tools like Emulate 3D to help us evaluate the potential projects that we could undertake, looking at investments in equipment and technology, in plant layouts and automated material handling. We're looking at our plants in Singapore and Twinsburg, a new facility, and we're leveraging those tools to get an understanding of what the real ROI would be for those investments so that we can make data-driven decisions about where we're going to place our bets and where we're going to make those investments. And so, creating a business case, leveraging some good data-driven insights can be kind of a compelling way for you to get your initiatives off the ground. Okay, we've all heard this, we've all probably experienced this. A pilot program starts, we see some early success, it looks promising, and then it ends up not making any progress, not going anywhere. And if you've had that experience, you're not alone. More than half of the respondents in this year's survey were in the piloting process of a number of different use cases, but only 20% of them were actually getting to scale. And that's a pretty big gap. You know, a lot of effort, investment, intensity goes into pilot programs, and so getting them off the ground and having a much wider impact is really important. But it's not easy. In manufacturing, we have a complex infrastructure. All of you have a legacy installed base, so you don't have the benefit of starting from a clean sheet of paper around your operations. And running an operation 24/7 in an autonomous way requires changes not only to the technology and the equipment that we have, but to our processes, how we plan, how we operate, how we maintain. And so driving and achieving autonomous operations is a great aspiration. It's possible, but it'll take pragmatic steps for all of us to get there. And so there's a few steps that I see companies taking that I think are enabling them to move faster and have a bigger impact. And I think the best way to think about it is don't start small, start smart. So think big, start smart. The first thing that you should be thinking about is identifying horizontal applications that can scale across your business. When you can impact a scalable use case across plants and equipment, it can have a wide-ranging impact on your operations. So there's a number of applications or areas, use cases, that I'm seeing across companies and a lot of industries. Areas like touchless quality. There's a lot of human intervention that goes into quality processes, and so how do you leverage technologies like advanced sensors, AI, vision, to help you automate more of the quality inspection process? Material handling, moving materials from a production line to a production line and back into either the warehouse or a dock is a great scalable application that can move across plants and operations. Inline process optimization, leveraging sensors and AI to monitor the variables and the parameters within a process and make real-time adjustments to increase the yield or quality of the product. So identifying those use cases that can go across a wide range of your operations and your plants is really important. The second is getting the team to think from an end-to-end perspective about your operations and how you can make them more autonomous. And so I've seen companies that identify, let's get to a single shift that's an autonomous shift. And they bring together manufacturing engineering, operations, maintenance, production planning, sourcing, plant leadership. It requires that holistic team to come together to think about, if we were to run just one shift in this plant as in an autonomous way, what would it really require in how we think about our planning and our scheduling, our material availability, how we'll perform maintenance before or after that shift. And so it really gets the team thinking about what it's going to take to achieve that. And I think you'll see that there are great ideas that come out from the organization. In parallel, it is important to think about your long-term plan. What is the lighthouse, the North Star, the end goal that we want to achieve? And what is the infrastructure, the data management, the automation infrastructure that's required in order to do that? So it's important to have that long-term plan and think about the final end game and how you want to get there, but taking steps of finding those scalable use cases and targeting how to get to just one autonomous shift in your operations is a great way to get started and pick up some momentum for your change initiative. A really great example of this is work that we're doing with a multinational frozen food company. I won't say what the food is, but I'm thinking you can guess from the picture. They've been working really hard to drive standardization and optimization all across their plant network. And their goal was to increase production so that they could avoid needing to put in additional lines or building a new plant. So they wanted to increase the throughput of their operations. And the really high value opportunity was leveraging model predictive control to evaluate aspects of the incoming raw materials, the environmental conditions in real time, and be able to adjust the cooking process in order to make sure that they got a perfect product every time and they could increase the throughput of their plant. They first proved it out in a few facilities. They applied the technology, they let the process run, and when they had verified, validated that they were seeing the results that they needed, they began to scale it across all of their operations that have this type of process. So now it's a global initiative for them to work across all of their businesses. All of this comes together, this focus on people-powered transformation, starting with people first and engaging them in your program, really mastering the new economics of transformation and thinking boldly and broadly about the value that you can create, and getting to scale across your operations. Those are driving real results for other companies that are moving ahead quickly. They're getting faster recovery when they have supply chain issues. They're seeing higher first pass yield and quality from their operations. They're reducing the amount of unplanned downtime that they're seeing, and they're seeing greater energy efficiency across their operations. They're not just making progress towards their goal, they're driving performance in their organizations. All of our businesses are becoming more complex, more connected, and more competitive. And so that challenges us to think smarter about how we lead our teams and our organizations to achieve the results that we want them to achieve. Thank you so much for joining me today. And it was great to be with you and share some insights from what we've learned from companies around the world. Thank you.